Hey everyone, so today we're going to be doing the exercise 4, which is the Spark SQL program. So these are the instructions that you'll need, which is the AWS version. So for part 1, you're pretty much going to be on your own, which is basically downloading and making sure Scala is set up. You're going to do part 1, set 1, which is downloading Scala, making sure you set the environment variables for Scala. You download the Scala IDE from this website as well. Then you'll move on to getting the Hadoop packages that you'll be needing later. Afterwards, make sure you set the environment variable for Java as well, just like you did in step 1. After you do all that, you can pick up right now. And just to save time, we're going to do AWS right now. So make sure you log into your AWS account and you create a cluster. Normally, you don't want to keep your cluster running too long. However, for this instance, it's going to take a few minutes for it to set up. So follow the instructions and set up your cluster. I'm just going to clone my cluster because I already did it. I did this exercise before. And make sure you include the last steps. And the important thing for this one is when you're actually doing the settings, make sure you click on Spark for one of the options to include. And make sure you already have a EC2 key pair already created. If not, you'll need to create one. And then create cluster. So another thing to mention is to make sure that you select M4 large and not one of the defaults. This is the lowest percentage that you can use. So while this is starting and booting up, we're going to actually work on creating the Maven project. So going to your Scala IDE, the one that you just downloaded, it'll be in an Eclipse folder. And then once you open that, you'll come down here to an Eclipse application that has like a cool little logo, and double click on that, and then it will open. So in Scala, we're actually going to be creating a new Maven project. We're going to be making sure that we click on create a simple project, and we're going to be giving it a name for a group ID, which is org.sparksql, and then we're going to be calling it Spark SQL Scala for the artifact ID. So I'm just going to call it workspace 2 and launch. Make sure you click on File, New, and you may not be able to see it, but click on Other, and we're going to be clicking on Maven. So it'll be right down here under the title Maven, and we're going to be clicking Maven Project. And then make sure you click on Create a Simple Project, and click Next. So this is where we have the group ID. So just taking from the instructions online, we're just going to do that. And to make our lives a little bit easier, just copy and paste Spark SQL Scala for the artifact ID. And there you go. Click on Finish, and it will generate the new project. So right now we're on step 6 of part 2. And right now we're just going to right click on the project, click on Configure, and add Scala Nature. So to do that, right click, go down to Configure, and add Scala Nature. And then you'll see at the bottom, it's actually building the workspace for the Scala Nature. And while that's building, I'm just going to review what the next step is, which is to open a new project and open the pom.xml and go to the POM XML tab. And then make sure you copy and paste this code and add it under the version line. So it's still building. And it looks like it just stopped. So here's the pom.xml file. So double click on this and wait for it to load. Normally you'd be able to see a tab at the bottom, so I'm just going to reopen it and hope that it does show. There we go. And right here is usually going to be the last tab, which will be the file that we're looking for. And right here, under the version line, we're going to add the code that we had in the instructions, which is the dependencies. And make sure you click on the save button to make sure everything is saved. So while we're building the workspace again, we're just going to scroll down the instructions a little bit more. And the next thing that we're going to do is change the source main Java from Java to Scala for this. Just make sure you wait until the workspace is fully built. Just make sure there's no issues or anything like that. So then here's the folder that we're talking about. So go down to Refactor and click on Rename to actually rename from Java to Scala. Scala, and let it load, and you'll see the change immediately. You also might recognize that you'll have some errors down here depending on like what version of Scala that you're using. And in a minute, we're just going to rectify all those changes as well. So for this, we're just going to right click on the folder that we just renamed from Java to Scala, and for the new package, we're going to call it org.sparksql. So right click, add new package. And for this, we're going to do org.sparksql and click on finish. And under there, we're going to add a new Scala object and add on driver. So in order to do this, just right click on the package that we just created, click on new, and then Scala object looks like a bullseye right here. Click on that, and it already has the beginning part. So we're just going to add driver and click on finish. Awesome. So for this step, we're not going to keep any of the code that's already in driver.scala. We're going to replace it with the code that is provided in the instructions. So we finally graduated to part 3. So make sure you copy and paste everything, starting from package to the last bracket. And right here, we're just going to delete everything that is in the driver.scala. And paste. We're going to save, and before you actually close out the driver.scala, make sure you uncomment this line, which is about, I believe, line 12, which is the system.setProperty, and it has like the link to your Hadoop bin master. And then make sure you click on save again. So now we're just going to right click on the project and click on build path and click on configure build path. This is actually going to help with all those errors that we have for the 17 items. So usually this will happen when you are not using the right libraries for Scala that you say in your code. So for this, we're going to see that Scala library container is 2.12-3. So we're going to add a library, and we're going to click on Scala library, and then we're going to go for the 2-11 bundle, because that's the one that we mentioned in the program, and click on finish. And apply and close. So you'll see the update right on the left hand corner where it says 2-11-11 for the Scala library container. And if you look at the very bottom for our log, you actually see that all the errors went away and we only have 3 warnings. So we will proceed to the next step, which is to do Maven clean and Maven install. So we're just going to right click on the project, click on run as, and do Maven clean. So right click, click on run as, Maven clean, and if you see in the bottom right hand corner, you can see that the workspace is building again. And then right click it on again, and we're going to do Maven install. And just wait for that to load again too. Now from there, we're going to open the target folder that is right over here, and you will see a very long name for this jar file. So this is the jar file that was just created using the Maven install and Maven clean. So then we're going to right click on it and we're going to rename it. So go to Refactor and click on rename, and for this exercise I believe we have to call it Spark SQL Scala. So I'm just going to copy this name to use for that. And click on OK. And it automatically changes the name too. So from here, we're going to actually if you haven't already, make sure you download the CAR evaluation dataset from this link that's provided on step 6 of part 3. And make sure you say that in a good place so that way you can maneuver and get to it. Because the next thing that we're going to do is within that zip folder, you're going to find 3 different text files, and one of them is data.txt, and we're going to be using that to upload to a S3 data bucket. So head over to AWS and go to S3 and create yourself a new bucket. So just keep a mental note of like what name you chose. So by accident I created 2, so I'm just going to delete one. The longest name, to be fair. And then click on confirm. So going forward, I'm going to be using Scala EX4. And I'm just going to go inside the bucket and click on upload to upload the 2 files that we need, which is the data.txt and the jar file that we just created. And you can find the jar file by going to your workspace, wherever your workspace is. Mine is just under my users, and for mine it's just BOA. And right over here I have workspace 2, the project folder, and go into target and you'll find the .jar file. And click upload to upload those two. So now they're here, and the next thing that we're probably going to be doing is creating a cluster, or going back to our cluster that we already created at the beginning and clicking on SSH because it's already waiting for us. We're going to click on that, copy the link for the host name because this is what we're going to use for PuTTY. Copy and open up your PuTTY. I save it to my taskbar because I just use it so often. And click on the arrow for SSH to bring down the auth tab. And for this, we're going to be using our private key. And mine is just saved on my desktop. This is the one that I use for the Hive exercise. And click open. This alert will show up. Make sure you click yes. And you enter your password. And you should be seeing this awesome EMR sign. So next off, we're just going to enter the line that's provided on step 8, which is this awesome AWS S3, basically uploading the .jar file to our bucket. I'm just going to maximize this so you can see it properly, and right click to paste what we just copied. So where it says bucket name, write down your bucket name that you created. I'm just going to double check that that's my bucket name. And since it is, I'm going to go all the way down and click enter. And right away we see the downloaded button. And just to make sure that it's actually there in our S3 bucket, we're going to list it. And there we go. So we're going to be doing another copy and paste because it's just a lot easier than writing out this long line. And it's from step number 9. Right click again and make sure for your bucket name you just update that again just like you did in the previous step. Once you do that, double check to make sure the entire line is updated to whatever name you chose for your .jar file if you weren't following the instructions, and for your bucket name, and then click enter. And it's working properly. So just wait for it to finish loading. And then afterwards, we're going to go to our S3 bucket to see if it created the output folder. So it just finished, so we're going to go back to S3 and we're going to click on the refresh button on the right hand side, and we see this awesome output folder that was just created. So click on it to go inside, and you can see 2 TXT files. One says success and the other one's part-50. And for this, we're just going to click on this and click on download just to double check the contents. You can open it up in Notepad, and there we go. These are the different cars that we're looking for. And you have now completed this exercise, but before you can actually submit, make sure you download this TXT file to your computer. You come back to the terminal for PuTTY, and you copy and paste everything from the start, from where you entered your password all the way down to the bottom. A cool way to do this is just right clicking on this bar right here and clicking on copy all to clipboard, and then just opening another notepad. You can just right click and click on paste. No reason to kind of drag your cursor all the way down and then click on copy, because you might run into errors. And then afterwards, just make sure you have your .jar file as well. You can download that from the S3 bucket or go back to your workspace and just download it from there. Afterwards, make sure you submit everything, and best of luck to everyone on this exercise. Goodbye! Hey guys, I also forgot to add one last minute comment for this exercise, which is to go back to EMR and your S3 in AWS and make sure you delete the cluster, you terminate it, and you allow it to terminate fully, and you go to your S3 bucket and you delete it after you download the contents that you wish to have. Just making sure you do this at the end of each section so that way it doesn't continue to run is one of the best practices you can do. Otherwise, goodbye!